Hi, it's Karen from Celtic Healing again. Pleased to see you. So we're now up to video 6 in our series, and by now, if you haven't checked out the earlier ones, have a quick look because we've covered quite a lot of ground. We've talked about what crystals are, how they form, how they work, how to be able to choose one for yourself, the very crystal that's there for you. There's a little bit of knowledge about some basic crystals to start your kit with. And now we're up to the point where you should have, hopefully, some crystals that you've chosen. So now what do you do with them? The first thing you have to do is cleanse them. And I know it might sound a bit strange because they probably look really clean, but crystals, because they give off energy, they also, most of them anyway, absorb energy as well. So if they've been in a shop, they've probably been handled by lots of different people. If they've had a previous guardian or owner, then they've probably picked up some vibrations and some energy from that person too. So the first thing you want to do is to cleanse these crystals so that they're cleared of any other kind of energy. It might not be negative energy, it might be very positive energy, but you want these crystals to be working with you. So there are a few different ways to do it because some things are more suited for some people than others, and some take a lot more time than others. So a lot will depend on how much effort you want to put in, how much time you've got, and also whether or not you're a bit worried about damaging or losing your crystals as well, because some of the methods can be a little bit tricky. So the first one that most people might have heard of is smoke. And it can be as simple as burning some incense. So I'm burning some white sage here, and it's just an incense stick, easily picked up, costs a couple of dollars, and you can burn it, and then you would just pass whichever crystal you wanted to work with through the smoke to cleanse it. You can also use other kinds of smoke. Some people like to burn white sage itself. Usually it's Californian white sage that comes like this, and you usually need a bowl for that because you don't want the ashes falling on the ground and making a mess, but it works in the same principle. You get it smoking and you pass your crystal through the smoke, or you have your crystal on the table and you pass the smoke over it. Another way to do it, if you didn't want to use sage, is salopanto. Now salopanto comes in sticks in wood, and again you need a receptacle to catch the ash, but it works the same way. It gives off the smoke, and again you can pass either the crystal through the smoke or the smoke over the crystal, whatever suits you. If you're not into smoke, or if you've got a bit of asthma, or there's someone in the house that's got a bit of asthma, you probably don't want smoke. So you might want to still use the same sort of thing like your Palo Santo, but in a liquid form. So one of your floral waters would be able to do that for you. And I wouldn't generally put a floral water straight onto my crystal because you never know whether it's going to absorb in or not. Usually what I would do is I would put it onto a feather. This one's a wedge-tail eagle feather, but you can use any feather. Usually it's a feather that's been gifted to you, so something you found in the park or the garden that nature has gifted to you. And you simply drizzle your floral water on there, and again in the same way waft it over your crystal to cleanse it. So that's another way that you can do it. Some people use water, so it can be as simple as tap water, running it under the tap. Some people like to use seawater, so you might take it down to the ocean, or you might get some seawater and bring it back. Again, it depends on what you want to do with your crystal and also how delicate the crystal is. Some crystals do not go well in water, and particularly seawater can be quite corrosive on some crystals. So if you've paid a lot of money for your crystal and you're not sure, you might want to check it out before you go dunking it in the ocean. Some people use spring water because they think it's more pure than tap water. It doesn't have chlorine and all those nasties, or they might use filtered water. If you're out in nature, there's no reason you couldn't put it in a freshwater spring. But again, these are all things that take time, take planning, and you also run the risk of something happening to your crystal. You may drop it, it may get washed away, it may get damaged by the water itself. Another way to cleanse your crystals is light, and some of you may have heard about moonlight, putting it out in the full moon or the waning moon. Other people might talk about putting it out in the sunlight. It just depends on, again, what floats your boat. Generally, if you're using light, it's going to take quite a number of hours to cleanse your crystal. So you've got to be prepared to leave it out there. It doesn't necessarily have to be outside. You can put it on a windowsill, but obviously it's not quite as effective as if it's out under the moonlight or out in the sunlight. And again, particularly in the Australian harsh sun, you want to be careful that you don't damage your crystals with the heat from that. A quicker way, if you want to use light, is a candle. And again, you could just pass your crystal quickly through the flame. I certainly wouldn't recommend holding your crystal under the flame or putting it into a fire. I know a lot of crystals are formed by volcanic eruptions and so forth and have been created under heat and pressure, but personally I wouldn't want to be damaging my crystal. But it is a way that some people use. Another way is to return it to the earth, so put it into the soil. So if you've got a garden, you might dig a hole and bury it in the earth. If you don't have a garden, you can still put it in the earth in a pot plant or in a container of soil. Be warned though, in doing that, of course you're going to get dirt on your crystal, so you might then have to wash it underwater, or you may find that crystals did come from the earth and they will often return to the earth. So if you are putting it particularly in a garden bed or into the ground itself, make sure you put a marker and be prepared that you may lose some of them that way, because sometimes they do disappear and you never find them again. A very simple way, but a little bit more expensive, is if you have other crystals that are high vibrational crystals like the apophyllite or the clear quartz or the selenite that we've talked about in previous videos. You can simply put your smaller crystal on top of them and again leave them there for a given period of time, depending on how much cleansing you feel that crystal requires. So it could be hours, it might just be half an hour, 10 minutes, whatever you think, but at least that's one way you know your crystal's not going to get damaged by using another crystal to cleanse it. The very simplest way, and the way that I use for most of my crystals, is Reiki. But not everyone is attuned to Reiki, so that's not available to everyone. But if it is, I would really encourage you to use your Reiki. Even if you've only done Reiki 1, all you have to do is hold the crystal in your hand, have called in your Reiki and cleanse it that way. Your intention is what will guide the Reiki to do what it is that you need it to do. Obviously, if you have gone on to Reiki 2 or Master, then you would use some of the other symbols that you have for your Reiki to do your cleansing, and that's a very quick way. You can cleanse lots of crystals all at once using your Reiki. But as I said, it's not available to everybody. You do have to be attuned to Reiki, and if you are looking at that option, I would encourage you to make sure that whatever course you decide to do, you get your attunement done in person, a recognised Usui Reiki Master. There's a lot of cheap options on the internet, and people who say they'll attune you over the internet. It's not recognised by the governing bodies for Reiki. You won't get registration anywhere in Australia or anywhere in the international community unless your attunements have happened in person by a Reiki Master. So just be cautious of that if you do decide you want to go down the Reiki course. And that's about it for how to cleanse your crystals. The next video is going to be very similar to this, because you'll find a lot of the methods that we use to cleanse, we also use to charge and program. And the next 2 videos are going to discuss just that. So I'll see you then.